Goodness. Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another daily digest of emotions, wisdom, and your body. I am Kay Crystal Griffith, and I am here to edify, educate, and encourage you in your emotions because they are your body wisdom. So today we are going to delve in to a couple of different things that all tie together. So it looks like I have a bug in my eye, but I really don't. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about are these declarations that we have been kind of introducing over the last couple of emotions and how they tie to not only your emotional health, but how you can actually heal your body using them. It's pretty cool. So it's called EFT. So today is going to be slightly different than our norm. Bear with me. It will all be worth it. All right, are you ready to dive in? Let's first define emotional health. So emotional health isn't about being happy all the time. Like, really, who can do that? Even if you had all the money in the world, like things are still going to make you mad. Things are still going to take you off. People are still going to run you off the road. I mean, things are just going to happen, right? And you can't control everything. So we can't be happy all the time. So our emotions are going to play into whatever our life looks like. So our emotional health is actually defined by our ability to understand and be responsive to our emotional experiences, to be able to feel the full range of our emotions and be at ease with them. Welcome them. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. First step, as we always say, is awareness, right? We have to be aware of what we're feeling so we can accept where we are. So then if we need to change it, we can. Pretty simple, we think, right? Yeah, not so simple, right? So with emotional health in mind, in the recent weeks, we've been leading you through some declarations about your worthiness, about your health, about your hope. And those were attached to your collarbones, if you remember that. These have been positive declarations, true statements that your subconscious really needs assurance about. Oftentimes we have that little 2-year-old within us that kind of peeps out every now and then, some of us more often than not, right? And that 2-year-old just needs that like cuddling, that care, that assurance that, hey, we're going to get through this. It's all going to be okay. We may not have all the answers, but we will find somebody who can help us get some, right? So we're walking through this in a way that reassures ourselves so we can have better emotional health. That's the key here. Now, when we make these declarations, we are using all the components that God has given us. So those are not only our 5 senses, our imagination for our seeing, our voices, our fingertips, right? Our hearing, our smelling, as well as your position and authority in Christ. Some people don't realize they have that. I got great news for you. You do. You got Jesus, you got power, you got authority. It's pretty amazing how this works. Now, what we're talking about here is we've been focused on just using the collarbone. I'm super excited tonight. Can you guys tell? All right, no squirrels. So we're super excited because if you understand this concept, you really can radically change your life right now in this session with me. Like it is that easy. It's amazing. Seriously, guys, I lost 11 pounds just by using this technique. Just this technique. I didn't change anything else. Just this technique. It was pretty cool. Okay, now that is not only the only thing that I have used this for, but it's the most obvious thing that I can tell you that I definitely saw change in. I also saw change in other things, but that's a big one for me, right? Okay, so when we talk about those collarbones, so we're really coming down your throat, right? So here's that bony hollow point, and now go about an inch over or so and feel just around. You're going to feel a really tender spot, okay? Now, mine tends to be a little higher than other people's. Can't tell you why. I'm just special that way. But yep, I found it right there. Yep, I feel that one. Do you guys feel yours? Yeah, that one you went, oh, yeah, yeah, that's right there. Let me tell you why it feels like that. It is tender because it's what's called a neurolymphatic point. So it's where a variety of oxygen points converge within your body, and you've got a multitude of them. You can actually go out to Pinterest or Google, and you can Google neurolymphatic points, and you get this great little chart, and you could actually laminate it and put it in your shower. So as you're working in the shower and you have that heat on you, you could actually rub or tap each one of those on your body. Whoo, your whole lymphatic system would love you. Now, the other thing that you can do super nicely for this particular area is if you have an indoor trampoline to jump up and down, that also opens that lymphatic gate and allows all of this to drain down and get out of your system. So really a really great point if you have any allergy issues. Got other tips and tools for that as well, but that's a huge one that you can do pretty immediately. Now, as we're working with these, we really want to understand it's a reflex point. So here's the thing. This is not really good for me, but could be good for you. The more chronically active and severe the reflex point, the worse the tenderness. So if this reflex point gets a lot of activity in your body, you might really feel the tenderness of this. Doesn't make you bad or worse off. It just means that tends to be a gate that gets used a lot from your lymphatic. So let's understand a little bit more about this amazing tool for your body wisdom toolbox. Emotional freedom technique, EFT, or EFT tapping is what it's called. I'll probably call it EFT or tapping as we go along from now on. This is what people often refer to as an alternative theory or therapy for anxiety, PTSD, and really other major conditions that we're going to mention in just a few minutes. According to the developer of EFT, which by the way, I am certified in, Gary Craig, he is the lead person who created and understood how the meridians were working off the acupressure points and understood that they were actually really moving and shifting things within the body from a different matter of perspectives. I've got lots of studies that back this up, and we're going to mention just a couple in a second. But he understood that tapping on different parts of the body helps balance the energy and reduce your physical and emotional pain. So not just, oh man, my hand hurts, but that pain causes a series of emotional triggers as well when you're in pain, right? And this is why, interestingly enough, when you have had something amputated, you also get phantom pains, as if the limb is still there, because those emotional triggers have created neuroplasty in your brain and they still exist. Today is going to be super more regulated to the science today. So I should have warned you in the beginning, right? But isn't that cool? Like now we understand better why people have the phantom pains. And the EFT for the people who have had amputations is huge for them because they stop having the phantom pains. And those pains are super real, as if somebody had just crushed their leg or just sawed off their arm. It is like super real in their brain. And so when you can reduce that and they get that out of their system and they don't have those phantom pains anymore, wow, what a breath of fresh air to their entire emotional being, right? That's what we're really talking about. So now I've given you kind of the far example, right? Amputation. But this works with fibromyalgia, with MS, with IBS, with chronic depression, with ADHD, with autism, I'm telling you, the list goes on and on and on. Okay. If there's something that you have physical or emotional pain about, this works. It works. Okay. So back to my notes over here. So I'll quit going off the soapbox. So EFT focuses on our meridian points. And the really cool thing is probably about I've been in Swankna for 6 years. So I think it had been out maybe 4 years before that. So maybe 10 years ago, they actually took a picture. They were able to get a picture with the actual meridians that go through your body. So people could actually understand we're talking about real things. Now, let's just put aside, we're not dealing with Eastern mysticism. We're not dealing with New Age. We're dealing with actually what's in your body, which are these meridian of energy flow lines. The same energy that makes me do this with my hand or this with my hand or this with my hand, same energy is what we're talking about, okay? For you to push up out of a chair and walk into the other room, that requires energy in your body. And those are energy meridian lines. And so when you get up, you're activating those meridian energy lines to do that particular task. So it's really science. Like that's what we're dealing with here, okay? So on those meridian points, we can develop like those gates, that lymphatic, a spot on our body where it's just a accumulation of energy that has to be processed out. Now, the cool thing is some of the new science that we have, meaning actual peer-reviewed journal articles, new, but those are actually seeing that those spots are actually emotional triggers that have tied themselves up within the neuroplasty, and it's related to your fight, flight, fear, or fawn, or freeze. I had to get all 5 F's in there. Responses to within your body. And so all of those F situations are actually creating these accumulations of energy balls at those spots. Isn't that fascinating? I know, this is like so cool, right? All right, now, when we restore those energy balances, we can relieve the symptoms of negative experiences and emotions that may have been caused. Isn't that absolutely amazing? Tapping is a very, very important piece of what I do for inner healing. And holding different meridian points is super important because then we can, again, release that accumulation of emotion in that trigger point and release it out. Man, people walk away healed. It is just amazing. Once they can get that kind of unstuck out of their system, they're on top of the world. They can take on the world because now they're not literally stuck emotionally, physically, or mentally, and they can move forward in their life. It's just huge. So clinical trials have shown that using this EFT tapping for stress is one way to rapidly reduce the emotional impact of memories and incidents that trigger emotional distress. So if you've ever been assaulted, if you've been in a car accident, if you've had a domestic violence situation, if you had childhood trauma, any one of these things. For me, I didn't even think about this one until I started working with EFT. And when I was in, I think it was 6th grade, I was riding my bike in our neighborhood, and this little tiny dog, he was a bit of a dog. I don't know how the thing jumped up to get my calf, but he literally jumped up while I was on my bike and bit my calf and wouldn't let go. And I did not like dogs for a very long time after that. And I had 2 in my household. And so every time I would begin to ride my bike after that, I would get off the bike, put the bike between me and whatever dog was there, and walk as fast as I could away from the dog, right? So when I worked through this EFT, that came up and I wanted to process that out. And now I like dogs. They're not my favorite animal, but I like dogs, you know? So like if I encounter one, I don't feel that freeze mechanism. I don't feel that fear mechanism anymore. That's all been processed out. I just don't, they're not my best friends, although we're talking about a service dog. So, it's all fun over here, All right, so let's keep going here. So those clinical trials that we're talking about, that was over 50 different researchers in 7 countries, and they have published in over 15 peer-reviewed medical and psychological journals. I mean, we're talking about major clinical studies here. There was even a testimony before Congress in the United States about EFT and the effects of EFT on veterans. So I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So one study showed after one day, so like a 9 to 5 EFT workshop, come in, you pay your money, we're going to teach you EFT, and then you're going to go about your way, right? 1 day workshop, decreased those people's psychological distress by 45%. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. These are not people who are typically going to be off the street and go, oh, EFT, yeah, I should sign up for that workshop and go. No, these are your therapists. These are your licensed providers. These are your chiropractors. These are your doctors. These are your nurses. These are your nurse practitioners. These are all people probably already in some kind of health field, holistic or Western, right? Maybe even Eastern. So somewhere in that health field, they come into this workshop and they who know how to get rid of emotional stress, who know and understand how to help themselves, right? So these should not be the people who need to decrease stress by 45%. And yet they were. And yet, knowing as much as they did, they came into this workshop and decreased their emotional distress by 45%. Can you imagine what it would do for you? Isn't that amazing? Now, so shown also to reduce your cortisol. You know that lovely hormone that we talk about whenever we get stressed. Yep, that one. Decreases it by 25%. And let me tell you the average. Per hour that you do tapping, 25%. Do you think you could give up a little cortisol here or there? Now, It's also been shown to be extremely successful for the military vets, the guys who have been over there. We've talked about PTSD several times in some of these emotions, and PTSD is really that fight, flight, freeze, or faint that's locked into their central nervous system and can't get out because they've never had an opportunity to allow it to come loose. Right? So all their escape plans that they've had to create because of where they've been have had to be locked away and said, no, we don't need you. And so because we don't need you, you're just going to stay in your central nervous system. And then they come back home and they're on heightened alert all the time because it hasn't escaped and come out. It hasn't been a conclusion to those escape plans out of their PTSD system for their central nervous system. So that has built into PTSD, right? Okay, so I'm trying to get my hair out of my way, and every day I change the side, and now today I can't figure out which side it is. Okay, so what we're talking about there with the military, this is so amazing. This has been so extremely successful. They've actually created the Iraqi Vets Stress Project, and the results are showing that in 90 days or less, they have more results for people who have done the EFT than people who have not as the control group. So they've got two groups. One's doing EFT, one's not. And in 90 days, the EFT group has had so much more success and continued down that success rate that typically 86% who use EFT are cured within 6 months or less for our Iraqi vets. That's unheard of. There's no pill on the market, folks. None. EFT, emotional freedom technique. Call your friends, tell your neighbors, get the word out. It's amazing, right? Now, EFT is doing a couple of things. You're tuning your mind into a specific state, whether that be an emotional state or a physical state of chronic pain, and you're really focusing, being intentional, deliberate on that state. Then you're tapping on various points of your body to, one, bring attention and awareness to your mind, to that problem. Two, to balance the energy in your system. So as you're tapping, we're going to talk about what that's actually doing in a minute. And then C, clearing the problem out of your system. Now, does that mean your memory goes away? No. So we're not taking the memories away from what the Iraqi vets saw. We're not taking away any childhood traumas. I can tell you domestic situations that I've been involved in that they don't go away, but that rise, that anxiety, no longer there. I can talk to you as if it's a blue day and there's a rainbow in the sky. I'd probably be more excited about the rainbow than I will be showing you emotion about things that I've walked through. Isn't that cool? I know, this is so cool. In fact, some therapists call this the silver bullet of therapy. Isn't that neat? Yeah, I love that, silver bullet. Okay, so what can this help? PTSD, depression, insomnia, releasing fear, ADHD, actually helping through cancer with chronic pain, with releasing just that visualization of getting it out of your system, of it healing up. There's so much power in the imagination that God has given you, folks. It is incredibly powerful. So when you're asking God to partner in that harnessing of what He has already given you, it's amazing what can happen in your body. Absolutely amazing. Migraines, even diabetes. People with diabetic insulin and their numbers have been super high. They've been able to bring those down by using emotional health with EFT, right? Also performance. So one of the people that originally taught me EFT, her son was on the football team. I wanted to say basketball, football team. He actually taught his team what's called the peak performance algorithm, and it's a tapping algorithm that you do. And so right before they go out on the field, they'd all tap that in, and they had the most successful season that they've ever had. I mean, there's something here, folks, about understanding that emotional health. And when we understand that we can harness our health ourselves, our bodies were designed to heal. They absolutely were. So we just need to partner with it to make it happen, right? So we're talking also about people that might have artist blocks, authoring blocks, phobias, really even that sports piece of having more layups or intensity or a balance or exertion rates, right? We're talking about in peak performance alone showing an increase of 38%. Like that's just amazing. So again, the silver bullet to helping you with your emotional health, right? So how does this really work? So it uses what's called exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and then the acupressure points on those meridians we've been talking about. So it uses that combination of all three of those. And what it's doing is in your brain, as you're tapping, you're sending signals to your brain that has been involved with responding to the fight, freeze, or fear. I'm trying to combine all of them now. So do you remember what that is? If I show you this, do you remember? It's that piece right there. There we go. That piece right there, right? So do you remember this is your brain? And that's your amygdala, right? Right in the center of your brain, right above the brainstem, that amygdala that then hijacks when it gets in an emotional state and activates the fight, flight, freeze response. Here, hijacks your frontal lobe, right? Becomes the terrorist of your body. So we are sending, by tapping, the calming signals to the amygdala to go, just breathe. We got you. Just breathe, right? And so from that perspective, the amygdala has already sent out and released cortisol, which we just said, EFT helps, right? And it also has sent out adrenaline to pump through your body, right? To make it do a variety of things based on your outcome of your escape plan. And the EFT tapping then sends those soothing signals throughout the body, calming the amygdala and releasing your fight, flight, freeze, or fear response. I'm going to start just saying the 4 Fs. I can't keep going through all that. It's like crazy today. So I'm going to give you the very short overview of EFT now. So bear with me, but this will be worth it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to reach out to me. And I want you to contact me on Facebook. And I would love to set up a session so I can actually teach you some EFT one-on-one and find out what your biggest anxieties are. I've actually run a class called Body Confidence, and it was based on a book by a leading EFT lady called Jessica Ortner. Fantastic class. And that's actually me leading the class. I lost 11 pounds out of it. So it's super cool. And in there, I had people come out of that class and go, you know what? My anxiety has been so amazingly under control since this class started. And then I had other people and their depression was lifting. And then I had so even though we go in for one thing, the amazing thing is it begins to work on all these other places within your body and your emotional health. And you don't even expect that. And then you realize it and you're like, wow, this is like a 12 for oneer. It's awesome. So here are your main 5 steps. The first one is you have to identify what issue you're going to work on while you're tapping for the moment. Now, you can go through a lot of issues, but let's get as specific as possible. Okay. So during this step, you're thinking about a problem you want to resolve, right? Maybe that's yelling. Maybe that's sugar. Maybe that's sleep. Maybe that's a fight with somebody at work. Maybe that's not liking work. Maybe that's something going on with a spouse or a relationship. Maybe that's something going on with a kiddo. Maybe there's something going on with a friendship. Maybe it's money. I mean, money stresses all kinds of people out, right? And so maybe it's overall you need a job and it's stressing you out. It could be any number of these things, moving, you name it. It could be childhood trauma. It could be a mom or dad, a sister, a brother, the dog, right? And actually you can use EFT on animals as well. It's really cool. So really, I want you to just think though of one issue to focus on. I know you've got a long laundry list. Get out a Post-it, write the list down. You can start going through them one at a time. You're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper the more that you practice this. So this is also something that you can begin to learn on your own. Now, I will give you a caveat though. If you are at the place that you're dealing with trauma, for example, PTSD or sexual abuse or sexual trauma, those really need someone who's certified in EFT to guide you through that and walk you through that. Because that really needs to be somebody who can also help you process some of those emotions or memories that might come up in those moments, because they're a deeper residue, a deeper a withdrawal system within your body, deeper places that those emotions are tapped into. So I do want to just give you that caveat. Okay, so again, I'm not a licensed professional counselor. I'm teaching you a technique that many, many people use all over the world who are not licensed professional counselors. But you do want somebody who's certified. And then two, if you're dealing with those deeper issues, I really want to encourage you to reach out to somebody who is certified so they can walk you through those together. Okay, now with that said, the second one, so first one was identify the issue you're going to talk about. So let's just talk about that car accident you almost had yesterday because of all the snow. And then two, test the initial intensity. So really we're looking at how bad are you feeling anxiety around that particular issue? So car accident, right? And when you think for a second about what just maybe could have happened, right, in that car accident, or the fact that they cut you off and because they cut you off, you ran into the light pole, or any number of those issues, like just think about the issue for a second and then rank it. And so 0, no emotion about it at all. I can talk about it as if, again, the sky is blue, right? To a 10 in which, and there's a couple of different ranking systems, but for today, we're just going to use this one, 0 to 10. And 10 being the worst this issue has ever been. Now, I don't really want you to sugarcoat the number because you're not sharing it with me. So why sugarcoat it, right? If the fact is, if you're feeling a 10 out of that situation, then call it a 10. But be honest with yourself. Don't go, well, I'm sure everybody else would only think it's a 5. We don't care about what everybody else thinks right now. We only care what you think. Yes, we're going a little bit long today, but it's super important that we teach you this technique because this could be a toolbox piece that you're going to use for your lifetime. All right. So 1, you identified the issue, car accident. 2, you're like, oh yeah, that really was a 10. That one shook me up. I can't believe how close he was. You know, my kid was in the car and I'm just thankful that I hit the light post and she didn't, but then we had to go to the ER and then blah, 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 right? Whatever that situation is. And so you're really just thinking about that situation. Then 3, it's called the setup. So before beginning each round of tapping, and you do typically 3 rounds overall to where you have the negative, the neutral, and then the positive. So the negative, the neutral, and the positive. And so from the negative, you might actually do a couple of rounds on the negative before you can get to the neutral and the positive, and that's okay. So I was working on one thing, I did like 8 rounds of the negative, and that was actually on drinking water. And now I like to drink water, not all the time, but I do like to drink water, but it cleared. So that's pretty cool. All right, so negative, neutral, positive. And we can get back to more of that when you and I talk one-on-one. But the idea here is each person should decide on a simple reminder phrase to repeat 3 times. So this is what's called the karate chop. So like if you were going to chop, right? Karate chop, karate chop. So it's kind of the fatty parts of your hand right there. Okay. Now, this reminder phrase really should acknowledge the issue, the car accident that we're using as our example, and convey self-acceptance about it. That's your self-acceptance. Sometimes it's kind of hard. If you've never actually accepted things in your life, that could be kind of hard. But go with me and trust me today, okay? This is day 50 that we've been doing this together. So hopefully I have built up some trust with you guys and we've had some fun together and you've learned over the last 50 days. I'm here to help you. I'm here for your success. I want you to be healthy. I want you to live the best life God has for you. And in order to do that, we can't handle and hang on to all these negative emotions, right? They cause emotional and physical impact. And we want you to be able to release them. Now, with that, so here's the phrasing, and then I'm going to put it in the car accident piece. So you're tapping this button right there, right? Fatty part. Okay, see that? Okay. Typically use 2 fingers. When I'm tapping the side of the hand, I just tend to use the whole hand. Never the thumb, has its own meridian. So at least making sure those 2 fingers are there. Okay. So even though I have issue, whatever the issue is, right? So even though I have anxiety, even though I have fibromyalgia, even though I have cancer, even though I have PTSD, even though I have had this car accident, right? I deeply and completely accept myself. I deeply and completely accept myself, right? So the overall phrasing, even though I have this anxiety around that car accident, I deeply and completely accept myself. And even though I have this anxiety around the car accident, I deeply and completely love myself. And even though I have this anxiety around the car accident, I deeply and completely trust myself. So it's accept myself, love myself, trust myself. Now, you could choose one of those and say the same one 3 times. And that's typically what is taught. I have found in the inner healing portion that your heart needs to know that you still love it, that you accept it, and you're willing to trust it. So I found that's really effective when I work with clients on EFT. So I deeply and completely accept myself, I deeply and completely love myself, and I deeply and completely trust myself. Now remember, you may not up here actually agree with those statements. It's okay. The piece is you're becoming, number one, remember, awareness. You're becoming aware. If you don't like one of those statements, you are now aware you don't like one of those statements. And you may need to do a whole tapping session around just the statement. Yep, that happens. So number one, identify the issue. Number two, test the intensity 0 to 10. Number three, you're set up, your karate chop. Even though I have anxiety around this car accident, I deeply and completely accept, love, trust myself, right? All right. Number four, sequence. These are the sequence. So these are all your tapping pieces. So during this step, you are actually going to tap on the specific points while repeating the phrase that you have chosen. Again, even though I have anxiety, right? And you can change that up a little bit and really begin to talk about the anxiety, talk about the fear that you felt when you were in it, talk about the surge of emotion that went through you when you just realized the guy cut you off and you didn't know what to do, and your car skid off and you hit the light post, and all the anxiety you might have felt with the police having to be there and getting the tow truck, and now the car's totaled and now you have to call insurance. There's a whole lot to a car accident that some people just don't realize sometimes. And so from all that perspective, you can, as you tap each one of these places, and you're going to tap each one 3 times. Okay. So top of the head here, right? We're going to go through these in just a second. All right. And so as you're tapping those 3 times each, you can say each one of those things related to the anxiety. The piece that's key here is staying focused on the issue, the anxiety from the car accident. Okay, guys? So what are your actual tapping pieces? So again, 2 fingers when you're tapping, right? And that's usually your first finger and your middle finger. Those have a positive and negative charge, male, female is kind of what it's called. All right. And only one hand is actually necessary. So you don't actually have to use 2 hands. Some people just like to be more symmetrical. It's more of they want things to be equal and balanced. And so they'll do that. That's perfectly fine. Not a problem. When you get here, it's really difficult to do 2 hands. So just doing 1 each is better. Now, I typically do 1 hand. Sometimes I do 2 hands. Just depends on what I'm doing in the moment. Not a stress whether I do it specifically or not. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So where are your sequence? Where are our tapping points? So the first one starts on the midline to the top of your head, and you probably feel a tender spot. Guess what? That's a neurolymphatic point right now on the top of your head, right? Okay, so my part does not go in the middle. So that is why so I'm not going over to the part. I'm actually going in the middle of my head. Okay, so where your part actually is. So that's the top of your head. And again, once you find it, you can't miss it, right? The next one is the bony part right there at your eyebrow, right? Okay, so right there. You can feel the bone comes down almost to the nose. So you don't want to go in the divot, but it's right there at the eyebrow line, right? So if you put your finger there, it's probably on the fingernail part side, right there. So right there. So 2 fingers, right? Then you're going to, not the temple is back here actually. So you're going to where the bony of your brow comes down to the outside of your eye. Okay, that one I find is a little harder to feel the tender spot. So mine's right on the inside, but you don't want to go into the eye. You don't want to be on the eye socket. You want to actually be on the outer piece. And then, oh, yep, found it right there. Okay. And again, as you're practicing, you might have to move this around, stop the video, practice a little bit more, you'll find it. Okay. Then we have the under the eye. Woo, got that one first off. Okay. Under the eye, where the bone is, not in the soft spot, not on the eye socket. So right there on the bony side. Then you have under the nose, which is the point between your nose and your upper lip. Now, interestingly enough, your teeth Yeah, I got big teeth. Your teeth go all the way up, almost hitting your nose. Isn't that interesting? So when you tap here, you actually might feel your teeth. This one doesn't tend to, I feel, as sore as everybody else does, especially if you have allergies. You might feel this one a lot, and you might feel this one a lot, but because you actually have a sinus cavity right below there. And so this one, you might feel a lot, especially if you wipe your nose a lot as well. Then you're going to the divot under between here and here, right where your teeth come down again. I know these teeth are like super long, right? And so that is where your spot is in there. Okay. And that one, a little bit tender, not too hard, right? Okay. Then we have the collarbone. So again, bring your finger down to find that hollow spot, and then over about an inch. And again, mine happens to be just like a little further than an inch. So, and that's where I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. So yours might just be an inch. So just kind of feel around, but you'll know when you hit it, you're like, oh yeah, I feel that one. Yep, there's mine right there. Does that make sense? I hope so. Now remember, when you get here, I have said to you before, you can tap or you can do circles. Up here, it's harder to do these circles. So that's why we're actually tapping everywhere else except here. On the collarbone, you can do circles or you can tap, either one. But the rest of them, you need to probably be tapping because it's more difficult to do the circle piece. Okay. Now there's one other one, and that is at the arm where a lady's bra strap ends. So if you just take from the chest and round your arm around there, you're going to feel that one. Okay. So that's right at the bra strap. And that's called under the arm. So when you're tapping, you are going from top to bottom is the easiest way to do it. So start at the top, come down to the eye, under the nose, under the chin, to the collarbone, and then to the arm, and then go back up. And you just make that whole cycle, right? So top of the head, right? Eyebrows, outer eye, under nose, under chin, collarbone, underarm. And keep going again. And you do that as many times as you need to. The idea is as your intensity falls, you should be able to see that 10 that you had that we talked about at the accident should begin to fall. And if you really are diligent to think about really how am I feeling right now, you're probably going to see the number come down. The idea is for you to continue doing it till you hit a 0. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes 30. It really depends on how tightly gripped the emotion is attached to the actual issue that you're having, that you're processing. It also, with that negative, positive, negative, neutral, positive, on that piece that you're just trying to get all the negative out. So as you're doing it, you're saying, even though I have this anxiety around this this car accident, I completely and deeply love myself. That car accident really threw me for a loop. Oh my gosh, when that guy cut us off, I felt super scared. I didn't know what was going to happen to me, to my child. I didn't know how to get out of the way. He just made me so angry. He wasn't even looking. You're just walking it out declaratively. You're saying it. Yes, you want all the negative. Cussing's allowed. Because sometimes that's all you can say in the moment of anger, of frustration, of rage, and you're just trying to get it out of your system. That is okay. So just make sure nobody else is around as you're going to town on this, okay? Now, the more that you tap, the quicker this is going to be for you, the faster you're going to have release because you are intentional to expect your body to release the emotional. You're expecting your body to cooperate. You're expecting your body because it loves you, it trusts you, and you love it, right? You accept it where it is. It will then begin to respond to you the more that you practice this. There's a dime a dozen of Google EFT videos out there. I would love to be able to help you as well. But I just want you to have another tool in your toolbox that is going to be absolutely amazing. So step 4 was that sequencing that we're doing, and we're repeating it as often as it takes to get that negative out and bring that 10 down. Okay. So if you get to a 5 and you kind of plateau, you were at a 10, now you're at a 5. That's huge. Maybe go on about your day. maybe go pick up the kiddo, maybe have to go buy a new car. So that in itself could use a tapping sequence. So maybe go do something else and then come back to it and do some more later. In reality, your body is going to handle only so much, especially as you're getting started with this. So you want to honor it as it's releasing and doing its job, but you do want to honor, you don't want to like overdo it. Kind of like playing tennis too much and then you got a hamstring and a tennis elbow, right? We don't want that. So number 5, because number 4 was the sequence, number 5 is test that intensity again. And I did speak to that where we're watching it from the 10, bring it all down to a 0. So then you can go, oh yeah, that accident, man, that was a doozy, wasn't it? And that's all you got to say. And then you're done. You don't feel it at all, right? So it's not like it happened yesterday again, right? That's the whole idea here. So you repeat that process until it reaches a 0 or it kind of plateaus. You kind of hit the same number and you're like, it's not really moving. Go do something else. You can come back to it later if you feel like you need to. So EFT can really create shifts in your body, your soul, your spirit, creating healthy emotional states on all levels. So here are your 3 wisdom verses. 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love. There is perfect love that drives out all fear. And that's really what all of our emotional dysregulation stems from, really is fear, okay? And so because fear has to do with typically punishment, and really God is perfect love. God's not about punishment. God sends the Holy Spirit for conviction, things that maybe we've done that we shouldn't have done, right? And we realize that we shouldn't have done them. So we make a change, we repent, and we do things differently moving forward in the future. Because God's perfect love drives out all fear because he comes in with love. So 2 Timothy 1:7, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind, right? Hebrews 11:1, now faith is confidence in what we hope for, which is emotional stability and health, right? And assurance about what we do not see. So even though we're not seeing this energy, even though we're not seeing the meridians, although we do have photographic proof now of those meridians, which is pretty cool. We know your emotions make you crazy, right? And we don't want that. We want your emotions to be stable and healthy and non-toxic. So this is one way to use that tool in your toolbox. So how are you going to use this new information about making these declarations about emotional health, about EFT, emotional freedom technique? How are you going to allow that to be used in your life? Remember, wisdom is not just the hearing, but the understanding and the application. And really, this particular piece, making our declarations of affirmation over ourselves, is just as important. So EFT not only can get rid of the negative, but the cool thing is it can put in the positive. So if you want to work on, like what I said about water, and I hate water and used to. And so it was really a love-hate relationship. I'm saying water. Yes, I'm saying that from my friend who wrote in her book, I could not pronounce water because my phonics are from New York. I just say things from the north, water, right? Anyways. Okay, so I'm just saying to you guys, there's ways to use EFT for the reverse as well, that you're putting in the positive. And that's what we want to do for you. We really want to build you up, joyous abundance in life, right? Because God has all these promises for you. They're all for you. So use them to your advantage, right? Leverage them. God wants to partner with you. He's given them to you. Let's do it. So take those 3 questions that we always use. How has declarations? How has you saying things over yourself? Have they been blessing or cursing? Have they been life or death? That's a good way to phrase it, right? And how can you transform what you have been saying to yourself, over yourself, about yourself, through yourself? How can you transform that by this understanding, this knowledge as you walk in it moving forward? So I cannot wait to hear how you're using EFT. And please reach out to me on kcrystalgriffith.com. I would love to have a conversation with you. If you want to give me a call, maybe I shouldn't put that phone number out there. I'll give you my email. How about that? kcrystalgriffith@gmail.com. I know somebody will take it and they'll spam me, but that's okay. If you have something that you want to say to me, I want you to text me. I want you to email me. I didn't give you my phone number. Email me. All right, I quit. Tomorrow's word, guys, is trauma. All those things that we can use EFT to help release. Trauma. What causes these emotions to be out of whack? So join us again tomorrow for more emotions, wisdom in your body. Register at kcrystalgriffith.com to receive more insights and your feelings wheel. Until then, start tapping. Right? All right. God bless.